welcome back for another episode of Branching Out with Sierra. Today we're on episode 25, and it's hard to believe we're already there. We're talking about the power of positive intelligence, and here with me today I have Ryan Chapin, and I'm very excited to have him as a guest. We'll talk a little bit about how we met and kind of what brought us here, but we're going to be talking about a concept that was actually new to me in the last couple of years. I knew nothing about. And I don't feel like I hear a lot of people talking about it. So I'm excited to dig in and share yet another resource, something that I hope that you guys tap into and really start thinking about what you can do to lead yourself more effectively, as well as lead others effectively. But first and foremost, thank you so much for being here today, Ryan. I appreciate you. I know it was a drive to get here, a drive down 81 in the rain. So that's dedication right there. So thank you.
No, it was no problem. It's my pleasure. I'm humbled to be here.
Oh, thank you. Okay, so let's tell folks a little bit about yourself. Give us some background, where you're from, what you do, what makes up the life of Ryan.
Yeah. Well, so I have lived in Hagerstown, Maryland, all of my life. I was born in the hospital they tore down, I usually say. Um, I've lived with my dad since my wife and I got married. He is in the north side of our house, and we're on the opposite side. And so I have three kids, and they can run across the backyard and go see him anytime they want to,
Oh,
and
wow.
it's super super cool to have him right there and so close. Um, I've always been an entrepreneur, and I've always loved getting into things. And even the businesses that I've worked for, I've always taken leadership roles or entered in, in line work and ran right up the ladder. So I just enjoy listening and enjoy working hard at that group think and successfully meeting and exceeding goals. And those are all solutions based, I used to
Mm-hmm.
say all the time. So
Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah, I know we were talking a little bit before we started about servant leadership. I know is
Mm,
very important to you. It's an important
yeah.
word in your vocabulary. It's what you live and breathe, I feel like, just from
Yeah.
what I know about you. Can you share a little bit about some of the businesses you're involved in so people have some context of where you're coming from?
Sure, sure. So my favorite thing that we're doing right now is Hardy Pet. And Hardy Pet is a premium and super premium pet store and online um, store. We've got products that you can't find everywhere. They're, you know, $100 bags of dog food
Yeah.
because you can pronounce every ingredient on the panel, and uh, a lot of them are independent brands, so still family owned. And we're blessed to be partnering with a handful of brands that are just the best of the best. Um, I think that that's probably operationally, we are in we have three warehouses across the US, and we're able to deliver from HardyPet.com in 1 to 2 business days to over 90% of the US.
It's remarkable.
So it's pretty exciting. And we're shipping out 2,500 packages a day sometimes to individuals, and taking care of America's pets. Just love it. I mean, it's really exciting. So
That's huge. And I've been there and I've seen a little bit of the action, which is cool to see the behind the scenes of, what
yeah.
goes on at a warehouse. And I think that it's amazing. Now, you had shared with me before, do you guys ship through Amazon at all too?
Yes. So that's actually our biggest revenue center. Um, Amazon shipments, if you go to Amazon and you're looking for pet related items,
Mm-hmm.
and if you see that it's shipped by or sold from Pet Food Station. Pet Food Station is a subsidiary of HardyPet.com.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So um, it's important to be able to, have different venues and or um, different paths to be able to sell product through, and you've got
Mhm.
flexibility and you've got the capability to work with more people and make sure your pricing is in the right areas. We've got .com leads towards the sort of the individual who is trying to explore and trying to understand and how to do better for their pet, whereas Amazon, they already know what they want. They need to get on, they need to get off, they need to
Mhm.
get going.
Mhm.
And so we get lots of phone calls from our .com side, whereas the Amazon is it's a machine.
Yeah.
So
Well, congratulations on all of that. That's
thanks.
exciting. And I know you're involved in like 5 other organizations. Is that right? Or
Yeah,
did I make up that
no,
number?
no, there's so lots of wonderful things going on. We also have a software business. We have a solutions technology solutions business.
Mm.
All of those have spawned from the needs of what Hardy Pet needed.
Okay.
And I'm blessed to work really closely with my church and with Habitat for Humanity of Washington County, and so there's just so many wonderful things going on in my life. I feel really grateful.
Great. And I know you celebrated a birthday. We won't say
Oh,
how many years, but you
no.
celebrated an amazing birthday.
Yeah, yeah. I'm 50,
Yes.
and that's crazy to even think about. My kids are growing so quickly, but I love every minute of it, and I don't think I'd change anything.
No,
So,
how wonderful. He was sharing right before we started about going to Harper's Ferry, which a great choice, by the way. It's one of my favorite places. It's so beautiful,
yeah,
beautiful views in all directions. So good choice in how to
yeah,
spend your birthday for
yeah,
sure.
yeah. My wife and kids, they let me go for Thursday through Sunday, and I spent a lot. It was a beautiful November weekend.
Hmm.
It was in the 60s and upper 60s and 70s, and the sun was out the whole time. I
Yeah,
walked a ton, and everything was beautiful, and it was just a perfect weekend. I spent a lot of time in the Bible and making time for him.
awesome. Well, thank you for sharing that so people have just kind of context of
Yeah.
where you're coming from for this conversation today. So I always start by asking folks about, when they first felt they were a leader. You were talking about how you've kind of worked your way up to leadership roles everywhere you've been, right? But when did you first in your life really identify as a leader that was having an influence on other people's lives?
Um, well, I worked in the computer industry for quite a few years. And the first time I went from working as, somebody behind somebody in the line,
Hmm.
and then I transitioned to being responsible for 60 people almost overnight.
It's a big transition.
It's a big transition, and it was gracefully given to me, the role. I had an incredible uh, coach, leader who
Hmm.
helped me understand the right way to do things, and I watched him very closely. Um, and that was sort of the first time I realized that, oh my goodness, you know, I, I have some additional responsibilities.
Hmm.
But again, I've always taught. I taught at 14 and a half at the YMCA. I taught swim lessons. So I supported the process of
Hmm.
teaching, so, you know, leading
Hmm.
and caring for, people and their futures, most of my life.
Yeah, I was going to
So,
say. So it started early on for you.
yeah,
All
yeah.
right. Well, I want to dig into positive intelligence.
Uh-huh.
I know that this is something that you really believe in.
Yes.
And so I want to just kind of start by asking, how did you first hear about positive intelligence? How did it come into your life? And we'll kind of give a shared definition of what it is. If you want to start us off by sharing how you found out about it and what it means to you,
Yeah.
then I'll kind of piggyback off of that.
So 16 to 18 months ago, my coach, David Lang,
Mhm.
with Lightbringers, he we were talking about energy, IPEC, and the energy
Mhm.
circle.
Mhm.
Oh, I wish I could.
Yeah,
I
I know what
wish
you're
I could.
talking about.
Okay, okay.
I'm
Look
with
it
you.
up. Look it up. It's fantastic. Um, and there's a silver lining to me constantly. I won't stay um, I won't stay negative long. And he David said, "Oh, this is really interesting. I've been working in this with this Shirzad, Shamin, the positive intelligence component. How's that sound to you? You seem to lean towards a lot of the things that he's talked about. And let me tell you, I immediately connected with it because you don't know why. Sometimes people have come to me and said, and it's been years, but you can't let go of some stuff. You know what I
Mhm.
mean?
Yeah.
Like, why are you so happy all the time?
Mhm.
Gosh, what
Mhm.
a terrible
Mhm.
thing to say to
Yeah.
somebody.
Yeah.
Of course, I didn't
I think it's a
internalize
compliment
this. I
personally.
know, I agree because there's just so much in the world that can lead you away from that.
Mhm.
And so even though I hold on to that because I know I was a young teenager, um, even though I hold on to that, I try and use it as a thing to remind me that that's who I am and that's who my core is.
Yeah.
And one of the things that, and I don't hope this doesn't lead you too far off the question, but
No.
the thing that really, really tied me to it, to positive intelligence, was an exercise that Shirzad does with um, picturing your younger self.
Mhm.
And boy, oh boy,
Mhm.
I don't want to go into it too much because you really have to be on that journey.
Mhm.
And then when you get to that point and you go through that exercise, it can be life changing. It
Yeah.
can be really, really. It was for me anyway.
Yeah, I would
Um,
agree.
okay, so I would rather folks look it up because I don't want to run them
Like
through
mess up the
mess up
experience
the
for them.
experience for
Yeah.
them. Yeah, but there's a
Yeah.
if you're at all interested in you know how to stay positive
Mhm.
and how to be able to look for the silver lining in anything.
Mhm.
Um, this is a program for you.
So it's funny because as you're saying that, so that's your focus. And this is because of my controller saboteur. I'm like, what I love about it is I love feeling like I'm gaining control over my mind.
Mm.
You know what I'm saying? It's like the saboteur acting, right? But I have
But
control over my mind
yeah,
and how I'm going to choose to respond in these situations.
yes,
And
absolutely.
it's kind of like what you were saying earlier with the leg shaking thing, right?
Yeah.
I can choose to take that energy and do something else with it. But I want to make sure people understand what positive intelligence is in the first place. So if you want to look it up, Shirzad Shamin
Yeah.
wrote a book, actually, Positive Intelligence, and it is why only 20% of teams and individuals reach their full potential, and
Mm.
then how you can achieve yours. And what positive intelligence, or we'll replace it with PQ here and there. So the quotient, it's like EQ, IQ, PQ,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
It measures the strength of your mind, is your ability for your mind to act as a friend more than your enemy, is a higher positive intelligence.
Yeah.
Or lower means that obviously the opposite, the reverse, where your saboteurs, which we'll talk about here in a minute, are acting against you, or they're overpowering your brain, and where your mind chooses to go. So when I first learned about it, um, to me, it was an opportunity to learn something else and have another tool for the toolkit for my clients, right? I do that all the time. And then I want to experience it myself first before I can speak knowledgeably about it. And so I went through the program as a user, and then went through the program to become a coach that could then, facilitate it with others. Um, but just so people kind of understand, if you were to go to the Positive Intelligence website, you can actually take an assessment. There are two assessments on there. One is the PQ assessment, and the score comes back and reports that outside of neutral times, your mind is either serving you a specific percentage of the time with empathy, gratitude, curiosity, joyfulness, creativity, all of these like positive emotions, right? Versus the percentage of time that it's sabotaging you, and that's stress, anxiety, frustration, anger, fear, right? All of those things. And so what you get back is the two percentages. So for me, I retook it yesterday. You know this. 60% of the time, my brain is serving in a positive capacity and allowing me to experience those emotions. And 40% the saboteurs are taking over. And I did not find my old score. I have my current one, but I know you were able to just kind of do an updated measurement. Can you talk about how your score has changed, and talk about a little bit of the practice that is leading to that change for you?
Yeah, so I would have, if I had to have guessed, I would
Mhm.
have thought I was doing a little bit better
Were
than
you
what
disappointed
said.
by your
I don't know
number?
if I was disappointed. I'm definitely encouraged because it's better than it was.
Okay.
And
I think you just
so
got one bonus point just for saying that.
I know,
It just
right?
went up a point.
So so 63% of the time, my my mindset is positive,
Yeah.
and then 37% of the time, um, it leans towards the negative. And the interesting thing is, I think with this more than anything, is that it takes so much more to stay positive,
Hmm.
right? Because how many times, it's sort of like a rut, right? It's so easy to stay in the rut, and you have to work hard to get out of the rut,
Hmm.
right? And what happens when you stop working hard to get out of the rut? You swing right back in.
It's like exercise.
It's absolutely like
Yeah.
exercise. And so there are PQ
Exercises.
exercises. Yeah. And so this whole concept of, we were talking about shaking your leg. If
Hmm.
you are shaking your leg, you are, and subconsciously or
Hmm.
unconsciously, you are not in control of your brain.
Hmm.
And so this whole concept of being able to take multiple multiple moments throughout the day to breathe in through your nose and feel the air hitting your nostrils,
Hmm.
to feel the air filling your sinuses, to feel the air on the back of your neck or on the throat, on
Hmm.
the filling your lungs, raising your chest. To do that for 10 seconds, 3 breaths, 40 times a day, 50 times a day, it will change your life.
It's so true.
It is incredible. And so if breathing isn't your thing, every time you walk to the restroom, feel your feet
Hmm.
taking those steps, right? If that doesn't work, when you're driving, feel your steering wheel. Touch your steering wheel, right? This whole concept of stop and smell the roses. This is not new.
Hmm. It's
This
not
is
at all.
not new. You slow down enough to stop doing and start being.
Hmm.
And this concept of smelling the rose and really smelling it and experiencing that whole process. Um, And then just committing to yourself for the rest of your life to live that way.
Hmm.
And and I tell you, that was not who I was 2 years ago, right? It was all about what's next, what's coming, what's going to reduce my friction, how do I get there faster, and
Yeah.
all of that. And I tell you, um, the exercises, he starts you off rubbing your fingers gently enough to feel the ridges on each finger.
I didn't even know that was possible, by the way,
I
until
know.
him. And I told you before the episode that it's my favorite one. I do it in traffic all the
Yeah,
time,
absolutely.
especially on 81. It
Yeah.
requires a lot of finger rubbing.
Yes, I
Um,
know.
but I didn't even know you could feel the ridges in your fingers.
Yeah.
But what he's talking about is literally first finger and thumb, just rubbing those together and really focusing on nothing else, literally nothing
Yeah.
else in your brain except, can I feel those ridges?
Yes.
And I love that because it pulls me out of that moment and the stress and anxiety and tension and into something completely different where I can't focus on the
Mhm.
negative.
Yeah.
I literally
Yeah.
can't.
And if you do lose focus, it's okay.
Hmm.
You once you've realized you've lost focus, come back and try it again for 3
Yeah.
breaths. And when you lose focus, it's okay. Come back
Yeah.
and try it again. And what happens is, and that was the most encouraging thing, he walks you through the program. Like as you're learning how to do this, he's there talking you through it,
Hmm.
right? And he'll give you moments of silence so that you can strengthen your own muscle, your
Yeah.
PQ muscle,
Yeah.
right? But then he comes back and he says at the end, great job.
Hmm.
Whether you think it was or it
Yeah.
wasn't, it was
Because
because
you tried.
you're trying. Exactly.
Yeah.
So
Well, I
encouraging.
I think that, and we'll dig into saboteurs and sage powers here in a minute, but I want to kind of hear, knowing that you are someone who, very strong in your faith,
Hmm.
involved in your church, a beautiful family, right? Navigating 6 businesses, right? You need a lot of positive intelligence in your life, right? And
Yeah.
so having that comparison of the before where, you were 18 months ago to today, what would you say has been the biggest shift you've seen in yourself?
Peace.
Okay? One word, peace.
Yeah.
Easy enough.
No. And I was still positive,
Hmm.
but it was a different. I would almost say maybe it was. It's not forced. Is forced isn't the right word, but I was positive because that's who I was. I
Hmm.
and again, my family would disagree because who you hardest on? I'm
Yeah.
hardest on myself and I'm hardest on my family. So they might not as agree as much as folks on the outside. And I say that humbly. But you know once you've done something for so long, it's easy. And for
Hmm.
me to stay positive, it's easy. It
Yeah.
just, I wish it, I don't brag about it,
Yeah.
but it's that concept of, yeah.
Well, it's weird because I think back, I feel like I've been on this wave. There was a period of time in my life where admittedly I feel like I just assumed that the worst would happen so that whatever happens, like, um, I would be pleasantly surprised,
Hope for the
maybe.
best,
Yeah.
expect the worst, and you'll never be disappointed.
Yeah, yeah, and that was my attitude towards everything, and then this weird shift has taken place, and it's funny about, like, why do you have to be so positive? My dad's made that comment to me before about, like, it's kinda sickening, like, "W why are you so positive all the time?" Like, you know and I'm
Uh,
trying to remind myself, no, it's actually a good thing because I
mhm.
was in a bad place there where
Yeah.
I was expecting the worst and just assuming all the bad things are going to happen to me. So if something does happen that's positive, it's going to be a huge surprise in my life and I'll be grateful when it does, but I'm just going to assume it's not going to. Like, that's what I was putting out and that's what I was getting back,
That's it.
right?
What you focus on,
Mhm.
you get.
Yeah. So, I mean, even for me, and I admittedly have not practiced this as much as you have, right? I went through the program, I was all in, I was very focused on it and doing a great job. And I would say the last probably quarter, uh, have not been in the app daily. And when we're talking about being in the app daily, there are little PQ exercises. He was talking about building the muscle. It's built in there where you can go in and he literally walks you through the breathing or the touching or the hearing or whatever it is. I like anything related to the senses, being able to zoom in on that, I think is really helpful. Um, but I have gotten away from using that, and I do know that it is impacting me. So I admit that I need to get back into it. And so this is actually a good refresher in reminding me how much of a shift I did see and how important it is to stick with it. So thanks for being that reminder for
I
me.
love it. Excellent. I'm so glad.
So the reason that I believe he says that it's why people don't reach their potential is because it's like these voices in the back of your head. They're almost like little characters. He frames them as like characters and what they're saying to you, right? Where you can almost anticipate, what is this one going to say to me in
Yep.
this moment that's going to try and get me off course?
And we've all heard them.
Oh yeah, it
And
happens all the time.
and the lie is that we think it's us.
Mhm. Mhm.
It's not.
It's not.
It's not us. It's just the noise, and we
Mhm.
have to start talking bad about it because we don't want to talk bad about ourselves because that, oh my gosh, I shouldn't do that,
Mhm.
or oh no, I can't go there, or those are or I'm too scared to do that, right? You
Mhm.
can't. Those are lies that
Mhm.
the saboteurs say. And again, from a biblical standpoint, these are Satan's fallen angels. The
Mhm.
judge is Satan himself, and the pleaser is one of his fallen angels that has
Yeah.
just beaten me down.
Mhm.
And it's not me.
Mhm.
And that is the piece that if you can realize, you talk to yourself in your head and you're like, oh, I need carrots, I need apples, right?
Mhm.
That is you.
Mhm.
But when stuff comes at you and it doesn't make you feel good and it doesn't serve you in a positive way,
Mhm.
it is not you.
Yeah.
And I don't want to sound, Pollyanna, but yes, there are bad things that happen, right? Shirzad talks about your hand on the stove. Pain, anger, worry, frustration, they are real,
Mhm.
and and but they are supposed to be for the moment.
Mhm.
You put your hand on the hot stove, you realize it's hot as heck, and you jerk your hand away. What does that take? 1 second,
Mhm.
right? Why do we hold our hand on the hot stove? We would never do that to anyone else.
Yeah.
Why do we do that to ourselves? It's absolutely unacceptable. Why do you worry for hours? Why are you angry for days? Why are you anxious for weeks?
Mhm.
It's not acceptable to do that to yourself.
I love that example with the hand on the stove. Everybody's touched
Absolutely.
something too hot at some point, and you
Yeah.
would not. You would not just keep it there.
No. And can you imagine if you did that to a loved one? If
Mm.
you held their
Held it.
hand,
Mhm.
you would never, ever consider doing something like
Mhm.
that. But yet you do it
You
to
do it to
yourself
yourself.
all the time.
It's powerful. It's powerful stuff here. Okay. So, I am curious in connecting this with leadership and how you choose to not just lead yourself, but lead others. How has this impacted your ability to effectively lead others?
Yeah. So I would love to say that, I've implemented this process throughout all my businesses. And we talked earlier about, knowing and understanding something fully before we're comfortable sharing with
Yes.
others.
Yeah.
And that is me to a T.
Mhm.
Um, And so, I have tried to lead by example. I've tried to do this by example. There's a mirror neurons. I don't know if that's really what they are called, but he refers to them as mirroring cognition or something like that. I apologize, I can't remember. But it's this whole concept, and we've all experienced it, where somebody gets upset, and so you're upset that they're upset, and then they're upset that they're upset, and then
Mm-hmm.
and then it just elevates and elevates and elevates, and you're like, that's not right. And so the Shirzad talks about these mirror responses that we give. Well, he talks about one of the muscles you can build is the shield
Mm-hmm.
to that.
Mm-hmm.
And you start shielding yourself from those reactions and you start responding instead. Um, and so it's a shield. Somebody comes at you with, why isn't this done? Or when are we doing this? Or how comes that's broken
Mm-hmm.
still? And you can, and instead of you responding negatively, you can respond positively. You're right, that absolutely isn't finished yet, and I do apologize. And you deflate the
Mm-hmm.
situation.
Mm-hmm.
And I've been blessed to be in and around that. In you know one of the things I used to do was fire and rescue. I spent 12 years on the ambulance, and so I learned very quickly what an emergency really is.
Yeah.
And so I'm able to, in some situations, not all, all right, I'm able to control that and deflate those situations pretty quickly. Um, Again, not perfect, but
Yeah, yeah. No, it's a work in progress, and I agree. So, just so people understand, we're talking about, how I went through the program. So technically, I could coach in using this, but I choose not to because I want to experience it more myself. And I tend to do those things too, where I'd rather model it for someone and let them see it in action than
yeah.
tell them how impactful it can be. But you are sharing it on the podcast today. So,
I am, and I'm really hopeful that, gosh, if one person,
yeah,
if this changes one person's life, it'll be worth it.
that's what I say
So,
about every episode. We're on the
yeah,
same page, Ryan.
yeah, I love it. I love it.
Okay, so we're not going to get into the weeds with this. However, I do want to highlight just so people can kind of see how it might be impacting their life without them really realizing it.
Yeah.
I want to go over the 9 saboteurs, maybe just very briefly talk about those for ourselves, and then those 5 sage powers that we can use to kind of counteract that, right? The other assessment that can be taken online for free, by the way, is that saboteur assessment if you go on the website, and it gives you a score on a scale of 0 to 10. I don't know if 0 is possible because I haven't experienced that. Just throwing that out there. Um, and shows you how much these are currently impacting you. And so I'll start off with Stickler, and we can kind of talk about each of these for ourselves, Ryan. So Stickler is that perfectionist tendency, the need for order and organization taken to the extreme, right? A stickler. And just so you guys know, I'm a 10 at that. And with my
And I'm in.
perfectionist tendencies, of course I want a perfect score. Isn't that what we're going for?
That's
Is
correct.
that not the number we
That
wanted? We wanted
the
a 0?
opposite side. Yeah.
Oh,
So I'm an 8. So
okay.
we absolutely are in line with
Yeah,
that. And
yeah.
I think it's important that we, again, it's that momentary stickler, right? It's
Mhm,
not focusing on being that that perfectionist for days or weeks or hours, right?
mhm,
It's got me
mhm,
moving through the
mhm.
experience.
Yeah. Okay, the next one's hypervigilance, very high for me. By the way, it's another 10, perfect score. And that is continuous, ongoing, intense anxiety about all the dangers, all the things that could go wrong, and vigilance just never at rest. And I even say this, even going out in a public place, I have to sit with my back in the corner, constantly observing the room, taking it in. Am I going to have to go into protection mode at any
Mhm.
moment? Like That's the hypervigilance
Mhm.
that we're talking about. So it is to the extreme for me. How are we doing with that one, Ryan?
Nope, I'm a 6.
You're a 6?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah,
How do you
it's
feel
not
about a 6? I'm curious. What does
no,
that mean to you when you say I'm a 6?
as a dad,
Mhm.
I'm okay with that.
Yeah.
As a born protector, as a servant leader,
Mhm.
I am fine with that. I feel like I would love for it not to be controlling,
Mhm.
but sitting to your with your back to the door, it just doesn't make sense to
Yeah.
me.
Yeah,
So,
and I feel but somebody has to do it, and that's
yes.
always a problem
Yeah.
when you go out with one other person that's like you, and you're like, "Okay, are we gonna sit on the same side here? Like, what are we gonna do about this?"
Agreed. Agreed.
I always say, "Well, you just have to promise that you're gonna protect me
That's
because
right.
I'm not able to see, so now it's all on you."
That's right. And when I sit down with my back to the door, I look across at the person who's sitting there and I say, "You've got my back, right?"
Yeah.
And that's how it goes.
Yeah.
No, that's
It's so
legitimate.
funny that, yeah, we both do that. Okay, the third saboteur, controller. So the anxiety based need to take charge and control over situations, um, impatience and anxiety when that is not possible. I know I'm a controller, and that's a 9.4 for me. So still really struggling with that one.
Yeah. So I'm a 5. And I would say that if you want to call it, half and half, right?
Hmm.
5 being sort of in the middle. I probably would have been much worse 10 years ago,
Yeah.
right? But it's an interesting, yeah.
Yeah.
c- I don't require control as much as I
Hmm.
used to. So
I am actually going to celebrate that mine went from a 10 to a 9.4
outstanding.
because in a perfect example of this was when I brought Erica, my assistant, on and started
Mm,
relinquishing control of some decisions, some communications. Matthew taking on this podcast and really like producing the whole thing and it being his baby and me not standing over his shoulder. I have come a long way in this. So, yes, a 9.4 is still way too high. However, that point 0.6, there's been a big change there.
yeah,
So,
it's incredible.
yeah.
And that's with not a ton of effort applied to it,
Yes, this is true.
which is pretty
Imagine with lots
interesting.
of effort. We need to I need you to hold me
I
accountable
would
to
love to.
getting back into it and cuz you don't have enough to do.
Yeah.
Uh I hold everybody else accountable in life and sometimes I like reach out to people and I say, I need you to hold me to this one cuz somebody has to. Um, the next one's hyperachiever.
Yeah.
So really focused on performance and achievement, and really that's self validation. Um, and I was talking to someone else about this recently. Someone had asked me to share things that I was most proud of that I had done in my life, and I realized that all of the achievements had to do with like education and like scholarly things
Mm,
and that my brain is wired to think that that's like my self-worth is in did I get an A plus on that, did I graduate with honors, did I, you know what
wow.
I mean, it was
Yeah.
all that was kind of wired into me early because I did ask my parents what they were proud of and a lot of those things had to do with my achievements related to that too. So you know it's where it's coming from. But all of that to say that I do often focus a little too much on achievement and find value in that.
Yeah. I'm an 8.
You're an 8?
Yeah.
I'm an 8.1. We're so close.
Yeah.
This is the first one we've
Yeah.
been close on.
Yeah. Again, it's a situation where, you know, we need a little bit of that,
Mhm.
and the opportunity that we bring to others through that achievement
Yeah.
is something to be said, right?
Yeah. Through our achievement, I feel we can have greater impact.
Mhm.
And in my mind, that's how I reframe it as
Yeah.
it's a good thing.
Yeah.
Um,
And it's
but then again, I don't know if
no
that's the right mindset either.
as long as it isn't controlling the situation.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Next one, restless. Constantly in search of greater excitement, next activity, busyness. Not usually at peace. Mine is a 7.5.
Yeah, I'm just a 5.
You're just a 5?
So, and that was before. I mean, this I haven't taken this in a while.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. I feel like for that one, it's just, well, I get annoyed when people say they're bored. Like, I don't understand that. I've never been bored for 30 seconds in my life. There are so many things that you can do, even if it's breathing and feeling the air in your
mhm,
nose.
yes,
I'm not
that's
bored
right.
doing that.
No.
And so I don't think it's the need for excitement. It's the, I want to use my time wisely while I'm here. And so to not be active, I feel like I'm wasting time
Mhm.
given to me.
No, I agree. I agree. It makes the time more effective if you can appreciate the quiet though too.
Hmm.
So,
It's true.
but
That's
to
what I'm
your
going to work on.
yep, to your point, I mean, the restlessness is probably the negative piece though of it. It's the I have to be busy
Hmm.
versus I enjoy being busy. If it sways, and we'll talk about the sage, if it sways to now all of a sudden you've got anxiety about it, then that's where it's
Yeah.
not serving you.
Yeah. It's a good point. All right. The next one's pleaser. I feel like you know something about this
Yeah.
one.
So that's one of my top 3. So,
So trying to gain acceptance and affection by helping, pleasing, rescuing others,
yeah.
losing sight of your own needs, and can become resentful as a result. And that's that piece you were talking about earlier, because we don't think that's driving any of it.
Yeah, I certainly hope not. Yeah, but the pleaser is absolutely something that I can relate to. And when it was outlined for me, yeah, I mean it's to a T. Um, I really hope that I'm not doing it just for the purposes of, being reciprocated.
Yeah,
Um, I do feel like I've got a servant's heart, and I want to continue that. And so I struggle. I struggle with that.
you do have
Yeah.
a servant's heart.
Well,
I know you just feel that you do, but you do. There you go.
thank you.
I'm going to validate that.
Absolutely.
My pleaser would have been off the charts before. Remember when we talked about disc and how I used to be an SC, off the charts peacemaker, and
Right.
now it flipped and I'm DC, and that S pulled back. That S pulled back. My pleaser went down. I'm not focused on just what everybody else needs at any given moment. I've also realized if I don't give myself what I need, I can't be as effective as a servant leader,
Right.
right? I'm just going to throw that out
Absolutely.
there.
Yeah.
Just, maybe you needed to hear
I
that.
know.
Oh, okay.
For the first, I've never done anything like go away from my family for a weekend by myself. So I feel like those are
Mhm.
steps.
That's
Those are
huge.
steps in the right direction.
And I think it's awesome to have a support system like that that gave you permission to step away for yourself. Matthew, if I need to step away for a few days to Harper's Ferry, I'm hoping that you're listening to this and hearing how a great support system that allows you to get away can be so
Oh,
helpful in your growth. Just saying.
I love it.
I just wanted to throw it out there. The next one, hyper rational. So focusing on the rational side when you're processing anything, it can cause people to perceive you as being distant or cold because you. Where's the emotional side of things? Everything's just rational and logical, right? What's that one for you?
6.
Okay, I'm
Yeah.
5.6,
Yeah.
similar.
Operationally, it's hard. It's hard. A lot of
Yeah,
stuff is black and white,
yeah.
and the piece that isn't is the human element,
Mm-hmm.
right? The employees and the things like that they need that touch. And
Hmm.
so I just feel blessed that's a 6 and not an 8.
Yeah,
Right,
no,
because I feel like it could be.
I agree. I think that that is good. So with me being DC, which are both task oriented, I do sometimes feel like I get so focused on the logical side and let's make a decision based on logic. It happened in a meeting yesterday where I could literally see the divide in the room on a leadership team. Half the room was like they're very people oriented and it was about the relationship and not hurting the relationship. And the other half said, here are the rules written on the paper and we have to follow them consistently. Right. And everybody was saying we just need more time to think about it. I said, no matter how long we think about it, these people are going to continue to focus on the relationship, and these people are process driven. So you know what I mean? We've got to figure out what we need to do in order. Do we try to change the rule as it's written because these people don't feel that it's considering people and their needs, right? So I think there is value sometimes in leaning in that direction, especially in a leadership role and being able to, you know, have clear expectations
Yeah.
and not get walked all over,
Yeah.
right?
We have to, I mean, we have to be able to adapt and we have to be able to, um, SOPs and SOGs,
Hmm.
standard operating procedures and standard operating guidelines. I've always kind of seen those as just separate, right? Procedures are things that you need in an operating room,
Hmm.
right? Guidelines are things you need at a retail store,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
They're train tracks versus guardrails. You can bounce around some guardrails a little bit,
Hmm.
right? But on the train tracks, you're either on them or you're off them,
Yeah.
right? If
It's
there's
I like
this,
that.
yeah, if there's this opportunity to you document for the purposes of having somewhere to start
Hmm.
as a guideline, right? You've got to write something down so that you've got something to measure and something to
Right.
work with. Um, but then for you know but then you have to realize at that time that was what made the most sense,
Yeah.
and we're further down the journey. We've learned and we've understood, and things have happened, and we need to be able
Yeah.
to explore those, and that's that's everybody.
I like that. I like the way that you differentiated between the guidelines and the procedures. I think I can tell people listening right now really like that too.
Yeah,
I think it'll stick
good.
because they can take it back to their teams and say, is this a
Yeah,
procedure or a guideline? Which one should it be?
right, right.
Nice.
Yeah. And again, I know a lot of us are controllers, and you know, we want it to just be right and we
Hmm.
want it to work every
Hmm.
time, but it doesn't.
Yeah.
And we have to be okay with that.
All right. Number 8 of 9 is victim. Um, so focus, well, we know what a victim is. Focusing on being a victim. I was high in that one before when I first got my Lyme disease. I was really leaning into that one. I'm not gonna lie. And then I completely flipped flopped it and was like, absolutely not. Actually, that was necessary. It propelled me forward. I don't feel sorry for myself anymore. So I'm at a 3.8. I've
Awesome.
really worked on that one.
Awesome.
Okay,
I'm at a 4. Yeah.
good job.
So
Look at you.
so I don't think those are
Yeah.
severe issues. It's
And
good.
then finally, number 9, the avoider. So focusing on the positive and pleasant and avoiding the difficult and unpleasant and conflict as well. That's, a lot of people avoid conflict. 3.1 on that one for me.
I got 5.
Okay.
I think it's definitely I'm a people person who loves processes.
Hmm.
So I really is right down the middle.
Yeah.
You know, I
Yeah.
just, I do. I'm a pleaser. I want everybody to be happy. So
Hmm.
I avoid situations.
Yeah.
So, um, we, I've learned a lot, addressing things quickly,
Hmm.
working on issues and dealing with issues quickly is the only way to do it. Um, and not letting the voices in your head lie to you about how terrible it's going to be, because
Hmm.
it's never
Hmm.
as bad as you thought it was going to be.
Yeah.
It never is. So
Yeah.
just work through it, make it happen. practice a lot, and then it won't be as scary.
Yeah, I like that. Practice a lot. I will get back into practice. I know that was towards me. Okay, so those are the 9 saboteurs, and if you were to take that assessment, you'll get scores on those. It is very interesting to see how it plays out. They score them highest to lowest for you. Now let's talk about those 5 sage powers that we can use to kind of counteract. And I know the empathize one, I said earlier that I know you're good at that, right? Showing appreciation, compassion, forgiveness, really empathizing with others, but empathizing with yourself as well. And you mentioned visualizing yourself as a child. That exercise
Yeah.
really pairs with that empathize sage power. So in the program, Shirzad teaches us kind of for each of these, when one of these saboteurs takes over, what do we counteract it with? And he teaches some activities that we can kind of put into practice that help us to tap into the sage power. So, how do you see yourself empathizing? How do you see yourself using that one? Does that one come pretty naturally?
Yeah, I would say that one is even subconscious most of the time.
Okay.
I can just sort of immediately say, "Geez, I know she's having a bad day. I
Mm-hmm.
can't be upset with that." Or
Mm-hmm.
I know that he's completely overwhelmed, or right, like all of all the things you want to maybe immediately be frustrated with. I mean, those are things that almost immediately come to me.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so empathize is.
That's okay. So there are 2 pieces here, and I
Hmm.
want to make sure we touch on both of them. So that's empathizing with others, and you could visualize them as a child, right? So innocent and go through that exercise. But I'm talking about with yourself, Ryan.
Well, I had a
There's a little
I
hesitation there.
had a great experience with the childhood picture,
Hmm.
um,
Good.
and and it was a very emotional and moving exercise.
Good.
So so I definitely feel like I'm better at that, but
Okay.
that's still something I have to work on.
Okay.
Yeah.
The second stage power, explore. So really considering what more can you discover about something without judging, right? You're just literally observing what's in front of you, discovering what's there, without trying to control it, change it, judge it in any way. Obviously, a very powerful one. Very difficult to do. Honestly, just focusing on the facts and nothing else. How do you do with that one?
Um, I'm still working on that one.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of opportunity for growth. But I love the concept of it, and
Yeah.
so I'm still.
Yeah. My controller counteracts that one
Yeah.
because I can look at the facts and then I immediately want to try and control every aspect that I can in that,
Right.
right? In
Yeah.
the scenario.
Yes.
And the whole purpose of that one is to not try and change it. So we'll just keep trying. All right. Number 3, sage power of 5 is innovate, looking at new ways to do things. That yes and. Can you explain the yes
Mhm.
and?
Absolutely. So whenever you're having conversations with others, even with yourself,
Hmm.
you can present information, but in a group setting, responding in any other way um, than encouraging their response and you adding to it. Anything other than that will make the room heavy.
Hmm.
I don't know
Yeah.
how else to say it. So if I'm saying something like, "Oh, I'm really excited about getting this new piece of equipment. It's going to make everything so much better." And then the person across me says, "Yeah, but we don't have the right electricity for it." Right? Like
Hmm.
it's
It's
immediately
deflating.
deflating.
Yeah.
Where yes, um, where if that person responded with, "Yes, I'm excited about that piece of equipment too," and I know that we've got 3 electrical engineers coming in to make sure that we can get the right
Yeah.
electric for it, right? That
Hmm.
shifts the room completely because then the next guy is like, oh, you guys are looking for electrical engineers? I've had a really good experience with the last
Hmm.
job I was at, and he's
Yeah.
actually local, right? And yes,
And
and it just becomes so much more uplifting. And if you're in a room full of people brainstorming or in a room full of folks um, that are probably already resistant to things,
hmm.
requiring it is
Yeah.
could be pretty interesting. And
Hmm.
again, I haven't implemented any of that, but I find myself even if it's not directly yes and it's always encouraging their comment
Hmm.
and adding to
Yeah.
it.
Like validate it before you
Yes.
do anything else with it.
Yeah, you've
Yeah.
got to, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good one. Thanks for explaining it that way. Um, so, number four is navigate. So, obviously, when you're trying to choose between different paths, using your internal compass, making sure things are aligned with your values, your purpose, your
Yeah.
priorities, right? And there's an exercise that he teaches to flash forward. Do you want to explain that one very briefly?
Sure.
You're
I
so
mean,
good at
oh, thanks.
it.
Well, I tell you, are you going to be happy with this decision? Is it in alignment with what you would want to look back on
Hmm.
5 years, 10 years, a year, six
Hmm.
months, your annual review, right? W- Where are you going in such a way that you know that you're directing your steps,
Hmm.
right? Are you are you on are you on your journey and are you going in the right direction? And by starting at the end, just like with goals, right?
Yeah,
Goals are the same
backwards
way.
planning.
Backwards planning. Yep.
Yeah.
Just making sure that you've stepped ahead, said, yeah, that makes
Hmm.
sense to me. I can see that going in the right direction.
Yeah.
And then stepping back and implementing,
I
executing.
think it's a great way to make decisions, but I think
It's hard.
knowing with a lot of the conversations I have, if things are purpose driven, value driven, right, and you haven't taken the time to reflect on your purpose and values in advance, then it's a lot harder to make that decision in
It
the
really
moment
is.
because you don't have that to reference, right? So
Absolutely.
how do you know if you're in alignment? So I highly encourage that. And finally, the fifth one is activate. So it's the one that allows you to move into action without the saboteurs kind of um, sabotaging your action, right? What might this saboteur try to say to me to prevent me from keeping my positive mindset in this moment, right? Anticipate and respond.
Th- And this is the one that solidifies the sage for type A personalities.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Because if you leave this one off, this is all pie in the sky.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, this is really nice, Ryan. What a great idea. And without action, you lose a large percentage of the folks out there.
Yeah.
And so if you think this is flaky and you think this is ridiculous and you think that this is silly, get get to action and
Mm.
everything will fall into place.
Yeah.
All your dominoes will come together and it'll all start making sense. Give yourself the time to get there. If you're this far along and you're still thinking, you're shaking your head no, when you get to action, then all of a sudden it can start to really
Mm-hmm.
click. So, and
Yeah.
and again, I've seen it. I wish I hadn't, right? But you get to a point where you know, you're fighting an uphill battle, and until somebody can actually see, oh, well, wait a minute, I
Mm-hmm.
can act, I can
Mm-hmm.
have control through that action,
Mm-hmm.
right? And um, this is the piece that'll click everything together for somebody, right? This positive think, right?
Mm-hmm.
It is, and it works, and so hopefully this will. solidify it for somebody.
I like that you shared that because, to be completely honest, I was skeptical about this concept when I first heard it. I'm telling you,
I
I
love it.
was,
I
and
love it.
I'm that type A personality. You know this about me, and so that's where I started. But I knew that if I could try it and see it in action, prove to myself that it worked, then I could share it with others. And that was the mindset that I had, that I shared with you, was this might be a tool for others. Maybe it's not the one that works for me, but maybe it would work for others. So who am I to not try it and then, prevent others from experiencing it? So that's why I did it. And I'm glad that I did.
Awesome.
And I definitely had to tap into the activate. But you're right. So there are definitely people listening that, you know, probably are feeling like this, maybe a little silly, that they just wasted a little bit of their life, but they're wrong.
Yeah, they're wrong. Yeah.
You're wrong.
Yeah. No, and
I'm okay
in
saying
a
that.
great way. In a
Hmm.
great way, right? I think that pushing back on stuff is awesome, right? Um, but practice,
Hmm.
right? It's just like, you can see when you go to the gym, you see yourself losing weight, you see yourself getting stronger. You have to you have to give this some time, and you know, and you will not be disappointed.
Yeah, that's a really good point too, is giving it the time. That doesn't mean trying it one day, downloading the app, trying it for a day and saying, yep, I didn't notice anything. Or I remember with my pod of people that we were putting it into practice with, I mean, we would share out at, each week how much we had used it the week before, how much we put it into practice, and people would admittedly fall into their old patterns. And, I didn't even open the app today or whatever, right? Well, obviously that's not going to be impactful. You just have to keep resetting and trying again,
Yeah,
not say it's not possible.
that's right.
So thank you for sharing that. So people that are new to positive intelligence, have never heard anything about it prior to today, what is your recommendation as a first next step for them, based on what we've discussed today?
Well, so I received the program as a recipient of a coach.
Mm-hmm.
And so if you're with a coach, I'd ask them to help you get set up with the
Yeah.
app.
Yeah.
Um, the website is free to go on and explore, and
Mm-hmm.
and and maybe that will, maybe that will help you find two or three pieces to make it more interesting to
Yeah.
you to then reach out to your coach or to
Mhm.
somebody new.
Yeah.
Um,
There's a book too. I mean, they
there's a
could
book,
read the book. There are
absolutely,
videos. Shirzad has tons of videos out there.
absolutely,
There are ways to engage without, if you don't have a coach,
yeah,
right? If you don't have a coach, reach
yeah.
out and let us know, and we'll make sure you have the resources that you need. But I think having that app is important. Everything has to be an app for them today for people to do it. I'm just saying.
Well,
It's
it's so
gamified
easy.
too.
I know, and it is. I, having been in software development and owning a software company, I don't develop anymore. But I love simplification. I
Hmm.
love, our toolship Simply is the epitome of how do I make this so easy to use and integrate with. This app is absolutely one of the best the best programmed UX
Hmm.
interfaces I've ever used. It's so simple. It's so
Yes.
logical,
Hmm.
and there are so many Easter eggs, right? You press on a button, and then you actually realize, oh, I can slide the button, and something
Hmm.
will happen, and something else will happen, and it really allows you just to have those PQ reps in your hand.
Yeah.
And and again, I mean, walk through a doorway, and that should be a trigger.
Hmm.
Touch your keyboard, and for the first 10 words, feel that tapping on your
Hmm.
fingers. Um, when you stand up, feel your feet touching the floor for the first 5 steps. If you can do it for 3 breaths, that gives you a purpose,
Yeah.
right? If you can
Hmm.
just do it for 3 breaths, 10 seconds, that can give you the, you know, because then 3 seconds is just like anything. 3 seconds or 10 seconds can turn into 20
Yeah.
seconds, right? Or
Hmm.
even if it's just 14 seconds, right? It's just a little bit more, and stay focused and try and release it. You know, don't think about it, just feel it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And give and allow yourself, like, when you get distracted, understand and give yourself grace, because it's going to happen. There's no way to stay focused and do it without distraction
distractions.
the
Absolutely.
first time around.
And honestly, it gets worse before it gets better
Hmm.
because these saboteurs don't want you feeling better.
Yeah. Yeah,
They
that's a
want
good
you
point.
in the rut. They
Hmm.
want you stuck in the rut.
Hmm.
So,
Well, thank you for sharing that. That's great advice. I hope people engage. And I just kind of want to come full circle and talk about, well, why are we even sharing this? And so much of leadership is about the way you lead yourself. And I just hope through these episodes that people are getting exposed to new strategies and ideas to really think about the way they think about why they behave the way that they do, so they can be more intentional in leading themselves, modeling for others, right?
mm,
Even if you haven't gone to your team and told everybody about positive intelligence, you're modeling it. They've probably seen a bit of a shift in you, even if it's that you're not bouncing your leg, right? They're like,
yeah.
he's so much more at peace than he used to be. I wonder why. Um, but anyway, thank you so much for sharing that journey with us and kind of explaining how it's impacted you. Sure, folks found value in that. I'm curious what you are learning about right now. You are a lifelong learner. I know that's why I surround myself with
Hmm.
folks that are lifelong learners. You're always learning and growing. What are you learning right now?
I love it. Um, I am working on automation
Ooh.
and leading our company into the next generation. Um, Cobots, collaborative robots that can work alongside our staff.
Oh, wow.
Um, some of the big robots you may see have to be in cages because they're very they're set, they're programmed.
Mm-hmm.
They move very quickly. Um, Step back to a cobot, a collaborative robot, you can actually set them up side by side with somebody, and you don't want to get hit by one, but if you do get hit by one, you're not going to end up in the hospital, right? They're going to bump into you, and
Yeah.
they're going to stop. So this whole process of powered conveyors and automatic labeling machines and robotics.
So cool.
Yeah, it's really,
I
really
want to see some of
exciting.
this stuff in action.
I love it. Yeah, I'd love to invite you
Yeah.
anytime.
Oh my
So
gosh.
we don't
That's
have
fun.
any of it yet.
Yeah.
We actually have some automation through automatic tape machines that
Mm.
tape the top and bottom of the box.
Okay.
It saved us up to 20% time. So we see it working, and we know that that's next steps. And then that way we can keep our core people
Mm-hmm.
and then elevate with more orders.
I
So
love that.
yeah,
Very interesting
yeah.
stuff. So how do you go about learning more about this?
Well, One IXA
Hmm.
is one of the groups that I've been following. A lot of the interface is going to be AI. There's a plugin for the tool called Eyes, EYEZ, and it's a visualization tool so the robot can actually see what it's doing. Um, you know, and so yeah, I would say those are two really good places. I
Okay.
mean, if you Google palletizer, right? If you need to get things off of a set of rollers and onto onto a pallet or to move boxes of product, Google Cobot and palletizer, and you'll see some pretty cool stuff, I think.
Yeah, I want to look at this. I don't need to do that, but
No,
I want to learn more.
it's
It's very interesting.
fascinating. It's fascinating.
Very cool.
So,
Okay, so I want to wrap it up, but I want to let folks support you. So Hardy Pet is one way, right?
yeah,
How can
hardypet.com.
folks find you and support all the things that you're doing?
Well, I would love, if you're ever in town on a Sunday morning, yeah, John Wesley United Methodist Church on Potomac Street, uh, a block away from downtown. We'd love to have you.
Hagerstown, Maryland, by the
Hagerstown,
way,
Maryland,
because
yes.
we have listeners everywhere and they're like, where are you talking
Yeah.
about?
Oh, sorry. Thanks. Um, and then Habitat for Humanity is really close to my heart. Washington County is the facility that I work closely with. But any habitat, get
Mm,
your team together and go build a house. It is a incredible, incredible experience.
I haven't done that before and it's so
Oh,
cool.
it is so
Yeah.
cool. And so, yeah, so go and do that. If you haven't yet, call your local. And if they're not doing something, go to the next county and
Mm.
and do something with them. So,
Okay,
yeah.
so we have the church, we have Habitat, we have hardypet.com,
Yep.
right?
Yep.
Anything else? Anywhere else that we can support you?
Oh my goodness, don't put me on the spot.
Oh, well,
No,
I
those are
just
all wonderful things.
okay,
Those are
good, good. Well, thank you again for your time, Ryan. I really appreciate you sharing this with us today.
it was my pleasure. I really appreciate being invited.
No, of course, of course. Well, thank you, folks, for joining us for the full episode. I really hope that you look more into positive intelligence, whether it's you take a look at the book, maybe order that, do a little research online, take an assessment, look at the resources available to you, reach out if you need any support with that. I'd love to connect you with the things that you're looking for. I hope you found value in today's episode. If you did, please share it with someone else in your network that you think might appreciate it as well. I would love for you to subscribe so you get notifications when these episodes come out every Friday at noon Eastern Standard Time. And until next time, keep branching out.